In this video, we will go through the step-by-step maintenance instructions on the repair and maintenance of Dadco's mini gas springs. Maintenance instructions are included with all repair kits. If you do not have a copy of the maintenance instructions, you can download them at dadco.net. Dadco encourages you to have your maintenance instructions present so you can follow along as you watch this video. For proper maintenance, the following repair tools are needed to aid in the assembly and disassembly of your nitrogen gas springs. You'll need the port servicing tool, the valve bleed tool, dead blow hammer, removal sleeve, the C-ring removal pliers, T-handle, and the C-ring installation tool. For filling and testing the gas spring after repair, you will need the following tools: the quick disconnect filler valve, or a pressure analyzer, the quick disconnect charging assembly, standard load cell, and test stand. Please note that nitrogen gas spring repair varies slightly from model to model and by mode of operation, whether they're self-contained or linked. As you proceed through the basic steps, take care to follow the instructions pertaining to your model. All Dadco gas springs are permanently marked with model and serial number. Please refer to these numbers when performing repair work and when ordering replacement parts. For our repair today, we will use the L750-025 gas spring. Here is an example of the laser mark on the cylinder. Before we begin, remember to always wear safety glasses when performing any gas spring work. When exhausting pressure, first position the gas spring horizontally with the port up for safety. We're going to remove the port plug located at the base of the spring with the port servicing tool, remembering to keep the parts for later use. First, we remove the port plug. Then we're going to use the valve bleed tool. The small port side will screw directly into the port. We're going to take a second rag, cover this, and we want to make sure we keep our hands and face clear of the exhausting gas. The rag will help protect you from that. Once the gas has been exhausted, we can easily depress the piston into this tube. If not, then make sure all the gas is out. And if you're unsuccessful, you should stop and contact Dadco. If you're working on cylinders that are part of a link system, you would exhaust the nitrogen from the system at the control panel. Verify the nitrogen is exhausted by depressing the rod. After that, detach the cylinders from the system and remove the service fittings so you can continue maintenance. Generally, the valve does not need replacing. However, if the valve appears damaged or is leaking pressure or sticking, you must replace it. You will remove the valve by unthreading it with the port servicing tool. This takes about 8 or 10 turns. Once the valve is removed, you can visually inspect the valve to verify that you are replacing it with the correct valve. We want to make sure the port is clean and then thread the new valve into the port until it fits snugly under the seat. Be sure to avoid over-torquing the valve. For cylinders in a link system, they will not have a valve, so you'll check the port for deposits or burrs and clean thoroughly. Inspect the service fitting and replace if it shows signs of damage. Lubricate the threads and seals on the fitting and thread the service fitting into the gas spring port. Now we'll stand the gas spring upright and we'll place a removal sleeve over the rod and begin to tap. This should fit directly over the black ring, which is the cartridge. Just a couple of taps, the cartridge will go down, which will free up the dust cover. We'll set the dust cover aside. We'll take the removal sleeve and push the cartridge out of the way so that we can access the C-ring. Next, we're going to take the C-ring removal pliers and pull the C-ring out. This is accomplished by visually inspecting the C-ring. I like to position it away from me. We'll place the hook under the C-ring about 1/4 inch away from the end, and then begin to lightly squeeze and rock the pliers back and forth. This does not take force, it's technique. Once the C-ring begins to break loose, we're going to close the pliers and push them forward, and the C-ring easily comes out of the groove. Next, we'll be using the T-handle to remove the cartridge. We're going to pull it out. We pull the entire assembly out of the spring. If necessary, depress the cartridge valve to relieve any back pressure. Once the cartridge and rod are removed from the tube, we can slide the cartridge off the rod and discard the old cartridge. Before we begin reassembly, we should also verify that the repair area is clean. It is very, very important that the repair area be clean and free from all contaminations such as grinding burrs or any contamination that might get inside the gas spring. Then we'll want to lightly polish the gas spring rod with an emery cloth at least 600 grit. Then we can inspect the rod for any scratches. Any visible scratches that can't be polished would deem the rod unusable, and we should discard and not rebuild this cylinder. If the rod is clean and free from defects, we can proceed. Next, we want to wash and inspect the tube assembly or the can. We'll make sure it's clean. We also want to make sure that the ID of this is free from any scratches that would damage the seals during reassembly. Once we've confirmed that our can is good, our piston is good, we can take our new repair kit, and we want to make sure we have the right repair kit. If you remember, this cylinder had a purple dust cover. We also want to make sure we have a purple label on our kit. We're going to verify the part number. This has a repair kit number, laser etched of 90.103.00750, and that corresponds with the repair kit number, or the RK905 as well. And we also need to remember that the repair kits are not interchangeable among models. So we're going to position the cartridge assembly over the rod, making sure that the wiper end is facing up. This is also marked on the side of the cartridge that it has is located marked top with arrows pointing up. We're going to hold the cartridge vertically, slide the cartridge down the rod to the rod retainer. And for the LJ and U series, DADCO recommends using an arbor press to press the rod into the housing. Be sure not to force the cartridge at an angle during assembly, as the seal may get damaged. Once the cartridge assembly is installed, check that the seal is properly aligned to the rod. Do not continue installation if the seal is rolled or damaged. Lubricate the inside wall of the tube with a bottle of DADCO assembly oil. Now we'll place the rod and cartridge into the tube assembly. Sometimes the valve may hold the pressure. If you need to, you can put this back in. In this case, it went in without a problem. So we're going to position the top of the cartridge just below the retaining ring groove, and the bore of the cartridge assembly is designed to stop the cartridge in this position. Do not force the cartridge down any further. Next, we've got to put the C-ring back in the tube. So we're going to use our C-ring installation tool. These are also sized per unit. So this is for a 750 cylinder. This should fit nice and smooth over the top and should line up with the bore. We're going to take our C-ring and install it into the tapered side of this tool. It should go down about 1/2 inch. Then we'll use our dead blow hammer, and with a plunger, we're going to give it a nice, swift wrap, which would knock the C-ring into the groove. We're going to give it a visual inspection to make sure that it's completely into the groove, not beyond the groove and not out of the groove. This one looks very, very good. Now we're going to thread the T-handle into the end position of the piston rod and pull it up until the cartridge is seated back up to the C-ring and the piston rod is extended. You may need to depress the needle valve again to facilitate this, but the cartridge should be flush with the end of the cylinder. Before charging, be sure to verify that the rod is extended and the cartridge is fully seated. Now we're going to thread the M6 charging nipple into the port of the gas spring. This just needs to be hand tight. We're going to go to our charging assembly. Charging assembly is attached to a bottle of nitrogen. We only use nitrogen gas. Open the valve. This is showing us that we have 2,000 psi of gas in the tank. And the regulator is right now set at about 750 psi. I'm going to take this one up to about 1,500. So by turning clockwise, I can watch the needle come up, set it to 1,500 psi, or if I wanted, I could go to 2,000. I couldn't go past 2,000 because that's all I have in this bottle. But I've got this one set now at 1,500 psi. I'm going to connect the two quick disconnects together, and we're going to open the valve slowly. And you hear the gas go in. If you're charging a U400, the max charging pressure is 180 bar. If you're charging like this L series, it's 150 bar, or 2175. So we open the shutoff valve at the end of the charging hose and allow the gas spring to reach the desired charging pressure. Then we're going to close the valve back up. Disconnect the charging assembly from the charging nipple, and be aware that a small amount of trapped nitrogen will bleed off as you disconnect the fitting. Next, we want to test the cylinder to make sure we don't have any leaks. I'm going to be using a small amount of water, but you can use some light mineral oil or a little bit of soapy water. You can either pour it from a cup. A lot of people spray it. And we'll pour a little bit of water onto the cylinder. And watch for any leaks. Looks good. I'm going to pour a little bit of water into the port. No bubbles, so we're good to go there. Next, we will want to verify the pressure with a Dadco load cell, which we would use with a test stand, or you can also use a pressure analyzer. The next thing we're going to do is reinstall the dust cover. This will be the new dust cover. They're going to be marked with Dadco writing on top. And these will just squeeze into this groove. Press it in a little bit by hand, and then taking a soft hammer, we're going to tap it in completely. The dust cover is not a seal, but it does keep contamination out of the gas spring. The top of the tube assembly should be, we should see the wiper, should be visible, and we're going to reinstall the port plug. And our cylinder is complete. For cylinders in a link system, you will pipe them back to the control panel, making sure all the connections are tight and the gas spring rods are extended. After all cylinders are attached, use the charging assembly to fill the system through the quick disconnect filler valve on the control panel. Once the system is filled, you have to check for leaks before installing the dust covers. This concludes our step-by-step instructions on maintenance and repair of Dadco mini gas springs. After viewing this video, if you require any additional training or have questions, please contact Dadco for assistance.